and it's time for Mason and Associates right here on AM 790 WNIS.
The topics discussed on this show are for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, financial planning, or other professional advice. We encourage you to consult with one or more professional advisors before taking any action based on the contents of this show.
You will rest easy once your plan is done. You will see clearly just how you have won. Gone are the times where you'd hope and pray. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Well, you know, guys, Michael Mason and Associates here. You never know. You never know how long retirement may last. This is Mason and Associates, MasonLLC.net. We went into radio retirement, John, 2 months ago, and here we are back. And we're back for a very special reason. And what's that reason?
We're excited to be here, Mike. And, you know, at the end of 2021 or 2022 now, we ended our radio show like every 2-week cadence where we were doing these programs with WNIS. But we're back today, and we want to give a big shout out to WNIS for allowing us to do an Ask the Expert radio show to talk about the Military Survivor Benefit Open Season, which is a very unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for retired service members in this area and throughout the country. So big shout out to them. Big shout out to WAVY TV 10, Chris Horn, 10 on your side. We're getting some traction this time. And in 2005, it was really, really hard to get the word out. But thank goodness for technology. We're changing lives, and we're back here tonight to hopefully do that on WNIS Live, and we hope we get a lot of good calls.
You know, this is, as we've said around the table, and your host tonight, Michael Mason, Certified Financial Planner of Mason and Associates, John Mason, Certified Financial Planner of Mason and Associates, and a dear friend of ours, James Bales, from James Bales Financial. And, you know, some folks would think, well, it's a couple of financial planning firms. Don't you compete with each other? And I'd say we complement each other. Jim and I have worked together for about 30 years. And the goal of tonight's show is to give you a perspective on this open season from guys that have been doing this, financial planners that have been doing it for 30-some years, and how valuable this open season may be. It may be, you know, it will be the last opportunity for you to fix a bad decision if you turn down military survivor benefits.
So we have a variety of talking points, guys, that we're going to talk about tonight that we have teed up. We have a few questions that were called in or emailed in advance that we're going to address. But we want you, our audience, to be a part of the show. 757-627-7979. That's 757-627-7979. Give us a call. What questions do you have about survivor benefits? If it's just general financial planning questions, we'll take those too. But we are focusing tonight on SBP open season. And I just want to say to both of you, because both of you have been, one, I have a real father figure who's been in my life for 35 years, and I have another father figure who's been in my life for about the same amount of time. It's pretty special. And all of us at Mason and Associates, myself, Tommy, Ben, Ken, who's been, you know, a partner with you guys for a long time, we all benefit from your lifetime of experience and stories. Some we can share on the radio, some we will choose not to share on the radio, but we want to say thank you to you both, because your years of experience has meant tremendous to my growth, which has been 13 years now in this business. And so, Jem, thanks for being here. And I think it's just good if maybe the audience can hear from you a little bit too. If you could introduce yourself, explain a little bit about your firm, and we'll see where we go from there.
Thank you, John. My name is Jim Bales, and Mike hired me into the business in 1994, so just about 30 years ago. And it's been a really wild ride. You know, we came into the business as life insurance agents, and we were fortunate enough to be hired when they were still doing really good training for life insurance agents. And as such, we were led to believe in the beginning from the information the company provided us that the best thing for us to do was to offer an alternative to survivor benefit planning by using life insurance to offset that. And over the course of some time, especially working with my dad who retired from NASA after 30 plus years and a number of other people, we realized that it was very difficult to ever buy enough insurance to be able to offset the survivor benefit plan and keep up with the cost of living adjustments. So very early in my career, Mike and I and Ken, crunching numbers, really were able to identify that the best thing that could possibly be done was to take survivor benefit, and almost without exception.
You know what I've always liked to say over the years, again, you can get trained wrong and you learn from your mistakes. And Jim, I'm so happy that we were able to help your dad take full survivor benefits, because I've been so passionate about this, because I wasn't smart enough in the business when my dad retired CSRS, and he didn't take it. And it takes some very special financial planning to overcome that mistake. But let's talk about survivor benefits. It's the only life insurance you can buy with pre-tax dollars, that's cost of living adjusted, that's guaranteed issue, and you only need to buy it when you retire. You don't have to buy it 20 years in advance anticipating retirement, because if you're buying life insurance 20 years in advance, you're probably getting the number wrong, but you're trying to buy that whole life insurance when you're still insurable, right, John? So guaranteed issue, which is you only start paying for it when you retire.
Survivor benefits is such a hard thing, and I hope that if we have listeners that are federal or private sector or what have you, that they're not tuning out right now because we're only talking military, because this conversation really is Social Security survivor benefit planning, Huntington Ingalls survivor benefit planning, any pension that you can think of survivor benefit planning. So don't tune out. Don't tune out and just think, well, this isn't applicable to me. It is. If you have any version of pension or Social Security, these thoughts matter. One of the things, Mike, that we've identified at our office is so many military members retire in their early 40s or maybe at 50, and they're young, they're bulletproof, they've never had a diagnosis before, and the thought of having to pay survivor benefit premiums, it does on the surface seem outrageous. Out of context or without context, the cost seems astronomical. What if we both die together? What if I outlive my spouse? I wasted all that money. It's hard to relate to the Mike and Bobby Mason, 40 years old, to the Mike and Bobby Mason at 65 or 70, who wish they had survivor benefits and can see that the peace of mind that gives you, just like our song says. So this is an opportunity for those folks who did not have the right context, who did not have somebody demonstrate to them the importance of this 20, 25, 30 years from now, able to reverse that decision.
And we're gonna tell as many of those stories as possible, but the whole reason for doing this is those callers. So let's get Marvin. Marvin, you're live with Mason and Associates. How can we help?
Yes. Again, I was in the Army. I retired after 23 years. I wasn't married. I met my wife overseas after the Gulf War. We got married. We were living in the Philippines. Came to the States after 9/11. A lot of things was going on during that time. And then when I went to get her on my survival benefits, they said that you have to do it 2 years after you're married, or within a 2-year period. And that time had elapsed before that for me. And I was trying to get this done just prior to COVID, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and everything collapsed. So so then I was stuck. And so recently I understood that you could try to go to court to do that, but I don't know where to go from this point on.
Well, you're unstuck now, Marvin. You're unstuck, and it's unfortunate, that. Let me go back just a little bit of time. A good financial planner in your life, the first thing they would have said is, "Oh, you were single when you retired. You got married. You have the opportunity to walk in and start paying for survivor benefits from that moment that you got remarried." They didn't do that, but now this is an open season. You're not in survivor benefits at all. So you should go to the DFAS website or go to the Mason and Associates website and get the letter of intent and fill it out and fax it in. They'll go back to when you were married, and they'll do the calculation and tell you what it takes to pay back premiums and opt into survivor benefits. And it all starts with that form. So we would encourage you to go get it.
Okay, so the letter of intent, you said?
Yeah, it's if you...
And that's on the website?
So, Marvin, thank you. And for all of our audience out there, I already started the blog post today. Hopefully, I'll have it live tomorrow. The blog post is going to have a few things. It's going to have the interview today that we did with Tony Macrini. Thank you, Tony, for having us this morning. It'll have some resources, the letter of intent, the interest rates that we think will be used. So it should contain, Marvin, everything you need to get the ball rolling, to get that first step. SBP enrollment is a 4-step process. Step 1 is submitting that letter of intent. Should be available on our blog at masonllc.net sometime tomorrow.
So that should be your first stop, masonllc.net.
Okay.
All right? And
LLC.net.
masonllc.net. Okay, we're gonna take the next call because we want to help as many people as we can. Jessica, you're live with Mason and Associates.
Hi, I was calling because my parents, my father was in the Navy. He retired as a captain after 30 years in the Navy. And my parents are still married, and they've been married since 1967. So, but my father was recently diagnosed with cancer, and it's pretty prolonged cancer. It's taken a rough toll on him, so he does have limited time on here. So we're trying to get his financial stuff taken care of because my mother never had any financial responsibility. My father took care of everything. But he says that she will not get his retirement. I believe it's a pension from the military, which is $8,000 a month once he passes. And I've been on the veterans website. I just don't believe that's accurate information. Is that accurate?
So, Jessica, this is absolutely why we're doing the show. This is absolutely why we're doing this tonight. So thank you again, Sinclair. Thank you to Mason and Jem. And for your call, Jessica, you're going to change the lives of thousands of people, I think.
Starting with your family.
Starting with your family. So the easiest thing to do is go to DFAS website and then go to MyPay. MyPay is the electronic portal where every single month your dad gets a paycheck for his pension, and you can download that monthly statement from MyPay. Okay, once you download the March or April statement, at the bottom of that in the remarks section, it will tell you whether or not he has survivor benefits. It'll show if he's paying for it. It'll show what your mom would receive if your dad or when your dad passes away. So that would be my first step, is to go right there. Second step, if your mom has a financial power of attorney for your father, she should be able to use that to get any questions that she needs answered from DFAS or from the Veterans Administration, the VA. If your dad declines survivor benefits, or your mom declines survivor benefits, I guess would be the better way to say it, it is true that if he dies first, that military pension could go from $8,000 to $0. So step 1 is figuring out, download that pay stub, see if he has SBP. Step 2 is if he doesn't have it, we submit this letter of intent, just like we were talking about with Marvin on the previous call, and we want to get your dad's foot in the door and enrolled in SBP as soon as possible. It's not financial planning advice. I can't tell you if it makes sense for your family to have it, but it sure seems like it does. And step 1 is getting that letter of intent signed, sealed, submitted as soon as possible.
Okay. So S like Sam, B like Victor, and P like Paul?
Survivor benefit plan. And on our website tomorrow, Jessica, masonllc.net, on our blog page, we'll have the interview with Tony Macrini. We'll have the letter of intent posted. We'll have some other resources that talk about how this works. That should be a good place for you to go. DFAS also has a special enrollment page that's live right now. So after this phone call, you could go to DFAS and learn a little bit more about it there, too.
And that's Defense Finance Accounting Services, just so you understand the letters. And I can tell you, John, this is exactly why. This is why we came out of radio retirement, to do this show. We had run this program, this show for 18 years, This may change your family's life, but you've got to act quickly. It could go from $100,000 retirement to zero, or you get your foot in the door. It's going to cost something, but that's $55,000 cost of living adjusted for the rest of your mom's life if they are indeed opted out and we can get them in. So work as fast as you can, Jessica.
I will. Thank you so much for the advice. Thank you.
All right, folks, you should call in too. You have some questions. We have the answers. Here's what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to think, I opted out of it, I made the right decision then, it's the right decision now, because really what you're thinking is it's too expensive without even knowing what the cost is. Let's find out what the price is before we make a financial planning decision. Call into the show, 757-627-7979, 757-627-7979.
You know you can make
Back with Mason and Associates. We've got a really, really special program tonight. It's military open season. There's 9 months left of it, the rest of this year. If you made a bad decision years ago, if your parents made a bad decision years ago, and now you've stepped in like our previous caller, and you're the one that needs to make some quick decisions, because you can reverse really crippling decision to turn down military survivor benefits during this open season. We've got a call from Mike in Chesapeake.
Yeah, man, right before we take that, just real quick, if you missed anything on this open season, we're going to continue talking about it. Episode 32 of our podcast, Federal Employee Financial Planning Podcast, talks about this military SBP open season. So if you can't stay around this show for a long time, check that out, or check out our YouTube channel as we continue to find better ways to bring this message forward. Mike in Chesapeake, you're live with Mason and Associates. How can we help?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm retired military, and I took the SBP, so I was happy to do it. But my father-in-law decided not to take it. He took out insurance, and he died 2 months after his insurance was up, just past 70 years old. Is there a way for my mother-in-law to go back and look at possibly getting it to get some of that benefit back?
No, there's no option for that. We've got we've got the client that just called, or the prospect, or whatever we call him, the caller that just called in a second ago. That we need to act quickly, because until you get that letter of intent and the foot in the door, once you pass away, that decision you made years ago sticks. Okay,
but my father, who's still alive, he didn't take it. Same generation. He has the opportunity to get in on it now, though. Correct?
Absolutely. And as John just said a second ago, we've got plenty of already good stuff, in podcast on our website, the video we did. So look it up. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to reverse a bad decision.
And remember it this way, everybody, Mike and everybody listening, this open season is opt out, opt in. You can't opt up. So if you already have some version of SBP, you're stuck with what you have. It's either an opt in or opt in, or opt out, not an opt up. Joe in Virginia Beach, you're live with Mason and Associates. How can we help?
Good evening. Two questions. First of all, how long is this program, this opportunity to opt in or opt out, open? And the second question is, how, I know you can't give details until you know each case, but approximately, or an estimate of what it would cost?
Program expires December 31st of this year, so it's a little over 365 days total, December 22nd of last year through the end of this year. And the way we would estimate it, back of a napkin right now, is look at your pension from last year. So look at your 1099-R from last year, multiply that times 6.5% times the years you've been retired. So if it's $100,000 that you made last year, your survivor benefit premium should have been $6,500 times the years you've been retired. We think that's a good WAG that would count for the missed premium payments, the interest component, and an actuarial hit, which are three things that are going to be factored into that. So last year's pension times 6.5 times the years you've been retired is a good starting point.
And John, let me just add, and if you have a follow-up question, go ahead.
No, that's a good estimate. That's what I appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
And again, don't make this mistake, folks. If you've been retired 20 years and that number, looks like $130,000, if it looks like that, it's because you're going to leave a benefit of $45,000 to $55,000 to somebody. Don't just discount it because you don't know where the $130,000 is coming from. Find somebody that does real financial planning, like James Bales Financial, Mason and Associates. Find somebody that does real financial planning. Get your number first, right, John? Get your number, and then go find them and say, does it make sense to opt in?
That's right. If it's a $150,000 opt-in and your surviving spouse gets $40,000 or $50,000 for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, we don't like to think of this as an investment, but folks, that's a good investment. And I know we're getting close to the end of the hour here, Mike. I don't know, or end of the bottom of the hour. Any question you want to answer real quick that was emailed in?
Yeah, let me just say to Sam and Sergio, you're going to have to hold on through this break because it's a mandatory break. But we do have an email question that came in earlier. I opted for survivor benefits, but my wife passed away. If I remarry, will my second wife be eligible to claim the benefits? And absolutely, as a military, you bought survivor benefits, the person you were protecting passed away, now you remarry, like our earlier caller said, you've got to get in within the first year or 2 years, and you just start picking up premiums from there. So you can absolutely do it. You don't need this open season to do it. If you get remarried, you can do it. Call the show, 757-627-7979. Welcome back. This is a very special show, Mason and Associates special show, Military Survivor Benefits Open Season. Again, how you can contact us. We're looking at this as a community service aspect. So masonllc.net. We have a bunch of content and podcasts and YouTube videos that you can research, not just on survivor benefits, but we're adding content on the open season. Folks, if you have questions after listening to the show, we're not Department of Defense Finance Accounting Service, so we just can't answer one or two questions and send you on the way. If you think you should have had this kind of financial planning help all along, and you think you might want either James Bales Financial or Mason and Associates to help you, and you have a legitimate interest in becoming a client, then we'll take those phone calls as well. James Bales Financial is here with us right now. Jim, you wanted to kind of finish a story. Why don't you give the folks your contact information and finish that story back when we were at Equitable, and then we'll go to these callers.
Thank you, Mike. I was saying that we had determined that we weren't able to comfortably replace survivor benefit with life insurance because we can't account for the cost of living adjustments as they go forward. So as a result of identifying the fact the company was leading us to something that wasn't necessarily in our client's best interest, that was one of the many reasons that led Mike and I to eventually go independent. So we don't represent a company or a product or a service. We represent our clients. We do full service financial planning. We're looking at every detail coming in. One of the things that is a blessing to me, just like it is for Mike, is my son followed me into the business. And there's not a better compliment that we can get than our sons watching us build a career and deciding they want to follow in our footsteps. And like Mike, my son's smarter than me. So I got a lot more experience and I know a lot, but Jacob, as he has followed behind me, and Jacob is a CFP as well, has a great grasp of all of this planning technology and a lot of things that are new. So please, if you need full service financial planning to find out if this benefit fits, if you can afford it, how we can scope it into your dreams and your hopes, call James Bales Financial at 757-591-9404, or you can go to our website at balesfinancial.com.
And Jim, I think that was a really good point you made about when you were with Equitable, which is an insurance company I don't think exists anymore. But can you just real briefly talk about what it means to be an agent versus what we do now? I think that terminology is just so key.
As an agent, you're actually bound by the rules of agency to represent the products and services of a company to your customers. And that was something that wasn't clear to us in the early years of my career. It was only when I truly tried to represent my clients to companies that I was told that that wasn't the appropriate action. As an independent investment advisor, we're able to go out and find the best product or service that will meet our clients' needs, because the only person we're representing is our clients.
And as a fiduciary, John, as you know, and we're going to take our next caller, as a fiduciary, if we make, which we do, we make our living on the assets under management, and if we think it makes sense for you to remove $150,000 of assets under management or $100,000 to buy into survivor benefits, that's what we're going to encourage you to do.
We all the time reduce our compensation, and I know Jim and his team does as well, by encouraging clients to delay Social Security, guys, by asking them to do Roth conversions and pay those taxes. Like, all of these different planning tools decreases assets under management, which shows that we're a fiduciary. Sam, you're live with Mason and Associates. How can we help? Hey, Sam in Chesapeake, you're breaking up just a little bit.
Sam, are you there?
I think this is enough.
Yeah, it's enough, I think.
Yeah. Sam, talk through the phone, not the air, and we'll talk to you clearly.
Okay, so we're going to skip on over from Sam, and we'll take Sergio in Hampton. Sergio, you're live with Mason and Bales. How can we help?
Yeah, hey, Sergio here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Hey, good to hear this, and appreciate you guys doing this for us veterans. So my basic question is, so I did take the minimum SPP, and my spouse, my wife, is on that, but it was just the minimum. So what does this give me as an opportunity to? Should I increase? Can I increase? Can I make more deposits? What do you think about that?
Let me try this one and be as nice as I can to people. First and foremost, we don't understand the rules. I don't know that Congress does either. So if a person made a minor mistake and only took a little bit of survivor benefits, well, we're not going to help that person. If a person made a major mistake and didn't take any survivor benefits, well, we're going to help them. So unfortunately, you're in that world that you made, a minor, almost a larger one, but you can't get in during this open season because you have an SBP benefit. Now, if you haven't turned on Social Security yet, we would encourage you can overcome some of that by delaying your Social Security to age 70, which if you predecease your spouse, she'll get the larger Social Security benefit by delaying it.
Okay, well, that's very good info, and yeah, so at the time I took the minimum just so I wouldn't be left out. But now my situation is my wife has already taken Social Security, so she's on it now. She's older than me. I'm 61, so I'm contemplating, should I take it at 62 or should I wait longer?
And that's where sitting down with your financial planner that really understands all your income sources. So we can't help you really make that decision on air, but you're going the right direction, maybe delaying. But reach out to your financial planner. If you don't have one, we've got James Bales Financial here. We've got Mason and Associates, and we can do an intro phone call to continue to help as many people as we can. Studio line 757-627-7979. And we have Albert in Chesapeake.
Yeah, hey, Mason. Thank you for doing this show. I think it is a benefit for all of us veterans out there. My situation is I retired in 2003 from the Navy, and I did not take the SBP. However, I am going to look into it this time around. I have already submitted my letter of intention, and I did it through DFAS's Ask DFAS, sent it to them electronically. So they have the two options of sending it electronically through their Ask DFAS link, or you can mail it in. And I just thought I would share that information with you in case you guys are anybody else might have any questions about the actual process of, putting in the letter of intent. Now, the feedback that I got from DFAS was basically after I submitted that letter of intent is that it was going to probably take about 30 days before I got a response back from them. I did get a response back from the Ask DFAS, basically telling me they received my letter of intent. They're indexing it into their retirements section at DFAS, and that their process takes about 30 days to get an answer back to you. And so my next step is waiting for them to send me a letter, which they're supposed to do by mail, and then that letter they're supposed to tell me how much it's going to cost for my one-time buy-in and premiums going.
Albert, here's what I'd like you to do. Thank you, and you realize how important this is, and I appreciate that feedback. Will you do us a favor? Take down our number, 757-223-9898. When you get that number, you may be one of the first ones that get it. When you get it, if you'll call us and tell us what that buy-in is, that way we can have an idea if we're on the right track for the rest of the folks that will be calling in. So thank you.
And Albert, I would just also ask that if you don't mind sharing the letter, maybe redact your personal information and send us the letter so we can see it, because you may be one of the first ones, like Mike said, that receives it. And if you can, in just one word or maybe a few words, was the DFAS portal easy to use?
It's not quite as easy as email, because once you send it, you get like a password and a number, and they'll email that to you. But in order to go in and check your response, you have to have the password that you create. And so that's basically that. Yeah, and I'd be happy to call you guys back and share any information that I have. I can tell you I've been on this from the get-go as soon as they had the letter of intent out, and I just realized last night that they actually have the actual document that you put in for SBP that they said that they were creating. And so I already have that downloaded. Another tidbit I will add is for the letter of intent is that it's in a PDF format, and it does not let you type your information into the form. It's almost like you'd have to print it out, fill it out, and then send it to them or fax it into your system. I just happen to have an expensive copy of Adobe Acrobat, which allows me to go in and make the changes I need to so that I can put all my information right into that form. So if you don't have a good Adobe application on your computer that allows you to fill in forms like that, you might be stuck having to print it out and hand jam it.
Typical government. Albert, thank you so much for the call and for the insight. And before we take our next call, let's fill up that inbox. I don't know where it's going, but if you're listening to this show, submit the letter of intent. I hope they get back to you in 30 days, but I want so many letters of intent submitted to DFAS that it takes them 120 days. So let's get these things submitted. Dan, you're live with Mason and Bales. Dan in Virginia Beach, how can we help?
Yeah, how you doing? I retired out of the Navy in 1989, and at that time with this program, they had to call my wife into the squadron, and it was her choice to take this program or not take it. Unfortunately, she took it. I did not want her to. Couldn't convince her otherwise. But I've been paying on it all these years. And unfortunately, again, she passed away 4 years ago. So I'm just curious, all that money that was paid in that was supposed to go for her, so now she's gone. Is it gone in the wind, totally gone, and never to be seen again? Or is there some way to recoup part of it?
So, Dan, I'm going to have to answer this in a way that you may not be happy with, just because there's people listening and you're kind of selling against what we think one of the greatest insurance products is ever, and that's military survivor benefits. So your wife made an extremely valuable decision, and you're even fortunate because most private sector survivor benefit plans, once you make the decision to buy it, you've reduced your annuity forever, even if the one you're protecting passes away. So first and foremost, to be direct, there is no payback of this. You know, just like if she had disability insurance and never used disability, or you have fire insurance and your house never burns down, you just buy insurance, you know, and it allows you to do other things and protect your family better. So no, if you happen to get remarried, the new spouse can come right in to survivor benefits. It doesn't need to be an open season for that to happen, and all you do is start paying premiums again. So let's be really, really clear to anybody that is in the open season and eligible to get survivor benefits, to reverse a bad decision, or anybody that's about to retire. It is the best survivor benefit program. The military is the best survivor benefit program anywhere.
Remember, guys, that you pay for it for 30 years. It's paid up at 30 years and age 70. The premiums are 6.5%, and they're pre-tax. So, Dan, what you think you paid into SBP, we're not saying it's insignificant, but it's probably 30% less than what you think you paid because of the pre-tax nature of it. And then that pop-up feature, we really want to hit home on the pop-up. And what that means is if your pension was reduced from 50 to 45 while you had survivor benefits, if that person predeceases you, you get popped right back up to 50,000 like you never had survivor benefits. So the premiums aren't refunded, but you don't see that pop-up feature very often. So, Dan, we appreciate the phone call.
You know, guys, we had this other one that was emailed in. Whoever wants to take this one, feel free. Are the benefits, which we mean the survivor benefits, determined by using the net monthly pension I receive or by the annual gross pension? What do you think?
So number one is go to the DFAS website, go to MyPay, and print off that monthly statement. Or you could look at even your 1099-R if you recently did your taxes. It's based on gross. So again, let's just say for easy math, you have a $50,000 gross pension before taxes, before state withholdings, before anything. Maximum survivor benefits is 55% of that $50,000. So again, that's different than private sector, because if you wanted to provide a survivor benefit to a spouse in the private sector, your pension would be reduced for the premium, and then the spouse would get half of that reduced amount. Military, it's 55% of the unreduced amount.
Yeah, the benefit before you elected, survivor benefits. So really, as I read that question, is, and I would say the gross plus, because most people think gross is what I start my pay at after my state and federal taxes, but it's really, when you took full survivor benefits, it's higher than that, right? So it's gross plus some. So it's again, tremendous benefit.
And maybe we can just talk a little bit before we get our next call on why this open season exists, when the last time we saw an open season, and whether or not we'll ever see one again.
Yeah, so the previous open season, which Mason and Associates had existed about 3 years, and that open season was because they used to have a reduction in the survivor benefit. It was 55% to your spouse until she was eligible to draw your Social Security, and then it would drop to 30%. Well, Congress did away with that, and they changed the premium structure. So there was a year-long open season, 2005, 2006, to reverse a decision. Given time, John, I'd like to tell the story of the family that did. Now, we don't even understand the logic of this one. We don't have to understand it. We just have to bring it to you. If you're 100% disabled today, well, let's go back 3 years, 100% disabled, and you're drawing a tax-free retirement, and you had survivor benefits, 3 to 4 years ago you die, your spouse had the choice of one or the other, whichever one was the greater benefit. So even the person that reduced survivor benefits, they didn't get both. Now, there was a refund mechanism to pay back the survivor benefits. Well, now Congress has phased in where if your spouse is due your VA tax-free benefit, they can also get your survivor benefit. And because they made that change, they felt like an open season was warranted.
It's an opportunity of a lifetime, and it's rather silly because I think it's probably a low chance, less than 1%, that anybody declined survivor benefits 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago because of the VA disability offset component. Nobody declined survivor benefits for that reason, but yet that's the reason that we have this open season. So It's interesting, and recently we've had several clients get rated up to 100%, Jim, and what's been really cool, I guess cool is maybe not the right word when somebody's 100% disabled, but they hit that rating, and now all of a sudden their property taxes may be tax-free, maybe a car tax is tax-free, and what we're recommending is that these folks call the Veterans Administration and ask the question, if I died yesterday, now that I'm 100% VA disabled, how much would my spouse receive? And it's going from theory, yeah, your spouse will probably get something, to actually having a number that we can input into the financial plan. So I know you guys are doing some of this similar stuff at Bales Financial, but for your clients that are military, for our military out there that are disabled, you can call the VA and ask the survivor question.
Thanks, John. I didn't realize that they could call directly to the VA and get those things answered. So it's nice to know that you have that resource and there's somebody there who's actually going to be able to get you a number, especially when we can plug into the plan. Because if we can see how those cash flows are cascading, it's much easier for us to identify where you're going to be able to find those assets to pay for that survivor benefit purchase and be able to show it that not only can you afford it, but you can do so, and it's going to be a blessing to your family.
And most recently for me, I've got a client family down in Florida, and we were planning on delaying the woman, the female, her Social Security until age 70 for a variety of reasons, but one was the VA disability benefit could go away, something else could go away, and we were like, we really need this survivor income, so we need to delay your Social Security until 70. We find out he's 100% VA disabled. He just hit the mark where he's been that way for 10 years. He calls the Veterans Administration. They give him a number. We relook at the financial plan. We activated her Social Security at 62 because we didn't need to delay hers until 70 anymore. That's the power of having the data, being able to change on the fly. Not that there wasn't thought into it, but like being able to change the strategy once you had the data, because before that it was just theoretical.
And Jim, you said this earlier, even before we got on the show, but I want to hit some really quick bullets. Jessica called in reference to her father who has terminal cancer, it sounded like, and your mind kind of exploded into the insurance world. What if she looks at her mom and dad's assets and, there's an IRA's not big enough. Let's say it's $130,000. IRA's not big enough. The cash in the bank's not big enough. Where do we get the $130,000? What did you go to?
Well, in a life insurance policy, when you have a critical illness, you have the ability to take a living benefit. So a lot of times when you're in that situation where someone has a critical illness, they're able to step in and take a substantial portion of the death benefit of the life insurance contract as a living benefit. Most of the time, that's up to 75% of the face value, which would allow us to utilize those tax-free dollars to buy back that survivor benefit.
And let's just put some context to it. Let's say it's $150,000 of a $250,000 life insurance policy. Well, let me tell you, $150,000 to get $40,000 or $50,000 a year for the rest of your life is going to be, the rest of your survivor's life is going to be a whole lot more valuable than that $150,000 of cash.
So we kind of talking about how to pay for it now, and I don't know that we've zeroed in exactly on how our clients are going to pay for it. It'll probably be different for each person, but it seems like there's the ability to just write a check as payment option 1. It seems like payment option 2 could have those premiums just withheld from your annuity on a monthly basis for 12 months, if I'm not mistaken. And then option 3 is a combination of those two. Is that your understanding, Mike?
It's my understanding, and what we're still trying to piece together is the questions that other folks don't necessarily know how to ask. As you said earlier, the premiums, if you bought it from the start, come out pre-tax. So the gentleman that paid 6.5% really only paid 4.5% after tax. So I'm thinking if your retirement check can be fully reduced for 1 year to buy in, that's going to be fully pre-tax. And maybe you need to use two mechanisms. Maybe you need to put a down payment so that then you can effectively get your retirement tax-free that year, which is going to go to the buyback. And this is why you need a financial planner, because there's a whole lot of questions that still need to be asked, but you want to work with the people that are going to ask those questions.
Well, but we cannot just gloss over the point that you just said. maybe I'll have to give up my entire retirement pension for 12 months. Now, if our audience right now hears that, they're going to think, Mike Mason, John Mason, and Jim Bales are crazy. How am I going to give up my entire pension for 12 months? They're like, these guys are nuts. What's our response? If you can't give up your pension for 12 months, how can your wife do without your pension, or your surviving husband do without your pension for the next 20 or 30 years? If you can't give it up for 12 months, how's your surviving spouse going to do it for 10, 15, 20 years or longer? Survivor benefits, big opportunity. Susan, you're live with Mason and Associates. How can we help?
Hi, my husband's deceased 2 years ago, was in the Navy, retired, 100% disabled. Just wondering, I just tuned into this, so I didn't hear all your details, but just wondering if anything can come to me through this. We turned down SVP at the time he retired.
So, Susan,
getting some money.
We're up against a really, really hard break. Yeah. I would say give us a call at our office number, 757-223-9898. That's step one. We'd love to answer your question in further detail. Also, call the Veterans Administration, because if he was 100% VA disabled, you may be entitled to something, specifically if his reason for death was due to the disability. There may be a survivor entitlement there.
You know, I want to thank everybody. This is Michael Mason from Mason and Associates. Across is James Bales from James Bales Financial. One, take the time to find out the answer. How much is it going to cost me to get in? Thank you for your service. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Jim, thanks for being with us tonight.
It's a pleasure, Mike.
This has been Mason and Associates and Bales Financial. Take advantage of the open season.
When sales and commissions all have disappeared.
Past performance is not a guarantee of future returns, nor is it necessarily indicative of future performance. Keep in mind, investing involves risk. The value of your investment will fluctuate over time, and you may gain or lose money.
The preceding program was sponsored and paid for by Mason and Associates, who's entirely responsible for its content.